Welcome to English Without Limit. I'm Julia, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about how to speak English without fear. But first, let me ask you, have you ever been afraid to speak English? Do you feel nervous when you need to have a conversation? Or maybe you're worried about making mistakes in front of others? Well, you're not alone. Many people feel the same way. Speaking a new language can be intimidating, but today, I'm going to share some tips and real-life stories that will help you overcome that fear. In this episode, you'll not only learn how to build confidence when speaking English, but also improve your listening and writing skills as you listen to real-life stories. Make sure to press the like button if you're ready to start improving your English today. Let's dive in. Let's start with a story from my own experience. A few years ago, I went to a small cafe in London to meet a friend. When I arrived, the barista, a young man named Alex, asked me what I'd like to drink. I was so nervous about speaking in English that I almost froze. I didn't want to make a mistake, so I hesitated for a few seconds. Then I remembered something important. Everyone makes mistakes. It's okay. I took a deep breath and confidently said, "I'll have a coffee, please." Alex smiled and said, "Coming right up." That simple conversation was the beginning of my journey to feeling more confident in my English speaking. So, what did I learn from this experience? First, it's important to remember, speaking English isn't about being perfect. It's about communicating. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Just keep going. Another way to gain confidence is by practicing with people who are supportive. I remember another time when I was at a social event and I met a couple named Sarah and James. Sarah was fluent in English and James was still learning. They both encouraged me to speak, even when I was nervous. James told me, "Don't be afraid to make mistakes. We're all learning here." That support made me feel so much more comfortable. So, here's another tip. Find people who will support you and encourage you. Practicing with others, especially those who understand what you're going through, makes a huge difference in building confidence. One of the biggest challenges in speaking English is the fear of being judged. I know this feeling well. One day I was having a conversation with a colleague named Michael, and I was so worried that I might say something wrong. But Michael made me feel comfortable by listening carefully and asking me questions. That helped me relax and focus on communicating, not on being perfect. The lesson here is simple. Find environments where people are patient and understanding. Whether it's a language exchange partner, a teacher, or even a friend, try to surround yourself with people who make you feel comfortable. Now, let's talk about one more tip. Practice makes progress. You don't need to speak perfectly right away. It's all about taking small steps every day. I remember when I first started practicing English with my husband. At first, it was awkward, but over time, I became more confident. We didn't worry about every mistake. Instead, we focused on having fun with the language. So, set small goals for yourself. Maybe today you'll try to order food in English at a restaurant, or perhaps you'll speak to a friend in English for 10 minutes. Little by little, your confidence will grow. Remember, speaking English without fear isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to try, even when you feel nervous. Over time, your confidence will grow, and so will your skills. This step-by-step approach helped me build my confidence. Another powerful tip for overcoming fear is immersing yourself in the language as much as possible. This is what I did, and it made a huge difference. I didn't wait for the perfect moment to start speaking. I surrounded myself with English every day. I started listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, and reading books in English. The key here is consistency. The more you expose yourself to English, the more familiar it becomes, and the less afraid you'll be to speak it. A friend of mine, Sophie, did something similar. She made a rule for herself. Every day, she would learn one new word in English and use it in a conversation. At first, it felt difficult because she wasn't sure if she was using the words correctly, but over time, Sophie got more comfortable, and her vocabulary grew. One day, I asked her, "Sophie, how are you feeling about speaking English now?" She smiled and said, "I still make mistakes, but I'm not afraid anymore. I've learned so much, and now I just focus on communicating, not on being perfect." One technique that really helped Sophie, and will help you too, is visualizing success. Before speaking, take a moment to picture yourself confidently speaking in English. Imagine yourself in a conversation, expressing your thoughts clearly, and enjoying the exchange. Visualization can be incredibly powerful because it helps your brain prepare for success rather than focusing on failure. So, next time you're about to speak English, take a deep breath and picture yourself succeeding. Believe me, it works. I also want to remind you of something important. Don't compare yourself to others. It's easy to feel discouraged when you see someone else speaking English fluently. But remember, everyone's journey is different. When I started learning English, I would sometimes compare myself to my friend Emma, who was a native speaker. I would think, I'll never speak as well as she does. But over time, I learned that everyone learns at their own pace, and I shouldn't be so hard on myself. The key is to focus on your own progress, no matter how small it may seem. Celebrate every step forward. Another helpful strategy is to practice pronunciation. Many people fear speaking because they think their accent will make it hard for others to understand them. But here's the thing, you don't need to sound like a native speaker. What's important is that you are understood. One of my students, James, was always worried about his accent, especially at work. I told him, as long as they can understand you, you're doing great. James took that advice to heart, and he started focusing more on clarity rather than perfection. Over time, his colleagues became so used to his accent that it wasn't an issue anymore. So, don't worry too much about your accent. Just make sure your words are clear and easy to understand. Something else that helped James was practicing in front of a mirror. This may sound simple, but it can be incredibly effective. When you speak in front of a mirror, you can see your facial expressions, mouth movements, and posture. This helps you become more aware of how you speak, and it allows you to make adjustments if needed. James did this every day for 10 minutes. At first, he felt silly, but over time, he gained more confidence in his speech. Finally, I want to talk about finding a speaking partner. This is one of the best ways to practice and overcome your fear. Look for a friend, a language partner, or even a tutor who can help you practice speaking regularly. I've had some amazing conversations with my friend Mark, who is from the UK. He and I would practice speaking together. And even though we both made mistakes, we learned from each other. Having a speaking partner takes away the pressure of speaking alone, and it allows you to practice in a comfortable setting. Mark and I would practice for 30 minutes every week, and it helped both of us improve so much faster. So remember, speaking English without fear is absolutely possible. It's about changing your mindset, practicing regularly, and embracing your mistakes as part of the learning process. Every time you speak, you're improving. Don't focus on being perfect. Focus on communicating and connecting with others. The fear will start to fade away, and you'll begin to feel more confident in your English skills. You've got this. Let's take this even further. Speaking English without fear is not something that happens overnight. It's a gradual process. And I want to share even more personal experiences and tips to help you feel more confident when speaking. Overcoming your fear of speaking English is something that anyone can do, including you. Let's break down even more ways to boost your confidence and improve your speaking skills. I know that sometimes it feels like no matter how hard you try, the fear of speaking just doesn't go away. Trust me, I've been there. But I want to remind you that it's okay to feel nervous or anxious. It doesn't make you any less of a learner. Take a moment to think about some of the people around you who speak English confidently. Did they wake up one day and suddenly speak without fear? Number. They worked at it. And so can you. When I first started learning English, I used to freeze up when it came time to speak with others. But then I realized something important. Confidence is built through practice. That's right. Practice is the secret ingredient to overcoming fear. I remember the first time I spoke with a native English speaker. I was terrified. My heart was racing, my hands were sweating, and I could barely form a sentence. But the more I practiced, the easier it got. One of my friends, Oliver, told me that when he first started learning English, he made a lot of mistakes too. But those mistakes were part of his learning journey. Every time he spoke, he got better. Oliver's experience is a great example of how making mistakes is not only normal, but necessary. In fact, one of the most powerful things you can do to speak confidently is to embrace mistakes. We all make mistakes. And I'm sure you've made your fair share just like everyone else. The difference is, you need to see those mistakes as opportunities to improve rather than something to be afraid of. Let's talk about a story of one of my students, Charlie. He was terrified of speaking with people because he felt that his English wasn't good enough. He would avoid conversations even when people were trying to speak with him. But one day, I asked him to step out of his comfort zone. I told him, "Charlie, let's try something small. I want you to say one sentence in English every day, no matter how simple it is." At first, Charlie felt awkward, but he agreed to try. His first sentence was, "Every day, Charlie practiced speaking in English for just a few minutes. Little by little, he became more comfortable with it." The fear didn't disappear immediately, but it became much smaller. One day he told me that he had a conversation in English with a neighbor who spoke very little English. Even though Charlie wasn't perfect, he communicated his ideas clearly. And that made him feel great. Now, Charlie speaks English regularly, and he's not afraid anymore. His story shows how small steps lead to big changes. Let's discuss another tip that can help you. Focus on what you want to say, not how you say it. Many learners focus too much on speaking perfectly. But the truth is, native speakers often make mistakes too. If you keep worrying about saying every word perfectly, you'll freeze up. Instead, focus on communicating your ideas clearly. If you need to use simpler words or phrases to get your point across, that's totally fine. What matters most is that the person you're speaking to understands you. A good example of this is my friend Jack, who comes from the United Kingdom. Jack was always afraid of speaking because he thought he would make a mistake and be judged. But when he visited the United States for a work conference, he had to speak to a lot of people in English. He was nervous at first, but he started thinking about the message he wanted to share rather than how he sounded. Jack told me that the more he focused on the ideas he was expressing, the less worried he became about his grammar or pronunciation. He said, "I was so focused on getting my point across that I didn't even think about making mistakes anymore." Jack's experience teaches us an important lesson. Communication is more important than perfection. Your goal is to express yourself, not to be flawless. Once you shift your focus from perfection to communication, you'll feel a huge weight lifted off your shoulders. You'll begin to enjoy conversations more because you're no longer trapped in fear. You're participating, you're connecting, and you're learning. And that's what truly matters. Now, let's take this even further. Another strategy that really works is recording yourself speaking English. This might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's one of the best ways to hear your progress and identify areas for improvement. Start with something simple. Introduce yourself, talk about your day, or explain your favorite hobby. Then, listen to the recording. You might be surprised by how much better you sound than you think. Over time, you'll notice improvements in your pronunciation, clarity, and confidence. I also want you to remember the power of positive self-talk. What you say to yourself matters. If you keep telling yourself, "I'm bad at speaking," or "I always mess up," then you're reinforcing that fear. But if you say, "I'm improving every day," or "I'm getting more confident with practice," you're building yourself up. Be your own biggest supporter, not your harshest critic. And here's another important piece of advice. Learn from real conversations. Textbooks are helpful, but they often don't prepare you for the way English is spoken in real life. Try listening to native speakers in movies, TV shows, or interviews. Notice how they use phrases, how they respond in conversations, and how they express emotions. Then, try using those same expressions in your own speech. Another thing you can do is join a language community online. There are so many groups, forums, and platforms where learners just like you come together to practice and support one another. You can find speaking partners, ask questions, and share your progress. Being part of a community makes the journey less lonely and much more motivating. Let's not forget the value of celebrating your progress. Every time you speak, every new word you learn, every mistake you overcome, these are victories. Keep a journal of your English learning journey. Write down what you've accomplished each week. Look back at it whenever you feel discouraged. It's a reminder of how far you've come. Finally, I want you to understand something very important. You are already brave. The fact that you're learning a new language and putting yourself out there, that takes courage. Fear might still be there sometimes, but it doesn't have to control you. Keep showing up. Keep practicing. Keep believing in yourself. You're not alone in this. Everyone who has ever learned a language has felt the same fear at some point, but they kept going. And so can you. You've got this. Keep speaking, keep growing, and never let fear silence your voice. English is just a tool, and the world is waiting to hear what you have to say. It helps because the more you think in English, the less you have to focus on translation, and it becomes more natural to speak in the language. Let's not forget watching or listening to real-life English content. One of the things that helped me improve my listening and speaking was listening to podcasts and watching videos in English. I used to listen to podcasts where people were talking about everyday situations, like going to the store, cooking a meal, or talking about their jobs. It helped me understand how native speakers use English in daily life. I also practiced repeating the phrases I heard. This way, I wasn't just passively listening, I was actively speaking the language as well. This was a great way to practice pronunciation and learn new vocabulary too. Plus, listening to real-life content can help you get used to different accents and speaking speeds, which is crucial for understanding native speakers. To further improve your speaking, I highly recommend practicing shadowing. This technique involves listening to an audio clip and trying to repeat the sentences as closely as possible, mimicking the speed, intonation, and pronunciation of the speaker. When I first tried this, I was amazed at how much it improved my speaking skills. By mimicking the speaker, you can train your mouth to form the words and sounds more naturally. It's also a fun and effective way to practice, because you're not just repeating the words, you're also focusing on how the words flow in conversation. Another useful technique is to use language apps. There are many apps available now that help with speaking practice, including voice recognition tools that help you improve your pronunciation. I used a few of these apps to practice my speaking skills, and they really helped me feel more confident. It was like having a speaking partner available at any time, and the feedback was immediate. The key is to use these tools regularly, not just once in a while. Consistency is the key to success in language learning. Lastly, I want to talk about speaking with confidence in social situations. If you're like most people, you might feel nervous talking to strangers, especially if English isn't your first language. But one thing that helped me in social settings was introducing myself confidently. I remember the first time I had to introduce myself at a social gathering in English. I was nervous, but I told myself, I'm just going to do it. I started with a simple sentence. Hi, I'm Natasha. I'm learning English and I love meeting new people. And you know what? People responded warmly. They didn't care if I made a mistake. They just appreciated my effort to speak in English. That simple moment helped me build more confidence in social settings. Building on this, being kind to yourself is essential. It's easy to get frustrated with yourself when you're not improving as fast as you'd like. But just like any skill, language learning takes time. Be patient with yourself. Every time you speak, you're getting better, even if it doesn't feel like it. So, whenever you feel nervous, remind yourself, I'm doing my best, and that's enough. As you keep practicing, the fear of speaking will start to fade away, and you'll begin to speak English more confidently, just like a native speaker. You've got this. And remember, the more you practice, the easier it gets. Keep pushing yourself and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is an opportunity to improve, and you'll find that speaking English without fear is entirely possible. Every mistake is an opportunity to improve, And you'll find that speaking English without fear is entirely possible. Let's keep going and dive even deeper into more ways to overcome the fear of speaking English. Overcoming fear is something that takes consistent effort, but with each step, you will become more comfortable and confident. It's important to remember that no one becomes fluent overnight. The journey is long, but every practice session, every conversation, and every moment spent using English will get you closer to your goal. So, let's continue exploring these helpful techniques and stories that can inspire you along the way. To begin with, setting small, achievable goals is key. We've already talked about how you don't need to be perfect, but setting smaller, realistic goals can help build your confidence over time. For instance, you could set a goal to speak in English for 10 minutes a day. This could be talking about your day, describing what you see around you, or explaining your favorite hobby. Little by little, you'll find yourself speaking more and more without the fear that comes with trying to speak for long periods at once. Take my friend James, for example. James was someone who felt very nervous about speaking English in public. He was afraid of making mistakes and often stayed silent in conversations. One day he decided to set a goal for himself to speak English for just 5 minutes every morning. First thing after waking up, he would talk about anything, what he had planned for the day, his breakfast, or how he was feeling. It seemed like a small goal, but after a few weeks, he noticed that he felt much more comfortable speaking English with his colleagues and friends. The key was that by focusing on small, manageable tasks, James was able to gradually build his confidence. Another strategy that really helped me was practicing English in a variety of settings. It's one thing to practice English in a classroom or study session, but it's quite another to practice it in real-world situations. As much as possible, try to use English in your daily life. When I was learning, I started by labeling objects around my house with their English names. I put labels on the kitchen items, furniture, and even the doors. Every time I walked into a room, I would see these words and repeat them in my mind. The more I used English in my daily life, the easier it became to speak confidently in real conversations. It didn't feel like studying. It felt like I was just living in English. For example, one day I was cooking, and I suddenly realized I had never said saucepan in English before. I'd always used the word in my native language, but by practicing speaking out loud and labeling everything around me, I felt comfortable saying it aloud. It was a simple moment, but it showed me how consistent practice can help you feel confident in real-life situations. Next, let's discuss visualizing success. This technique might seem a little abstract, but it works. If you ever feel nervous before speaking in English, take a few minutes to close your eyes and visualize yourself having a successful conversation. Imagine yourself speaking clearly, with confidence, and understanding the other person's response. Visualizing success helps reframe your mindset and reduce fear. The more you visualize success, the more it becomes your reality. I remember when I had to make an important phone call in English, and I was nervous. Before I picked up the phone, I closed my eyes for a moment, visualized the conversation going smoothly, and told myself, "I've got this." When I made the call, everything went well, and I felt so proud of myself. That simple mental exercise made a huge difference. This brings me to surrounding yourself with positive reinforcement. Whenever you do speak English, Whether it's a short sentence or a full conversation, congratulate yourself. It's easy to focus on what you could have done better, but try to take a moment to acknowledge your effort. One of the things I've learned over the years is that a positive mindset can be incredibly powerful. When you speak with someone and they understand you, even if there are mistakes along the way, celebrate that success. I used to write down a small note of appreciation for myself after every English conversation, like, "Good job. You spoke English for 15 minutes today." Over time, these positive notes built my confidence and motivated me to keep practicing. Additionally, using English in casual settings can be extremely helpful for overcoming fear. Try using English with your friends, family, or colleagues. You don't always have to wait for formal occasions to speak. In fact, using English in informal situations will help you become more relaxed. For instance, when I started practicing English with my friend Lucy, we would talk about everyday topics, like what we ate for lunch or what our plans were for the weekend. We didn't focus on grammar or correctness, just on having a fun conversation. These casual exchanges allowed me to practice speaking without feeling the pressure of making everything perfect. It was like a safe space to practice without fear of judgment. I also want to talk about joining group conversations or even language meetups. Many cities have English-speaking groups where learners gather to practice together. These meetups are great because you're surrounded by people who understand your challenges and want to support each other. I attended a few language exchange meetups, and they made a big difference in my learning journey. At first, I was shy and hesitant to speak, but everyone was so welcoming. We all took turns practicing English and helping one another. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about improving together. Sometimes we'd play games, like role-playing different scenarios. For example, one person pretended to be a customer in a restaurant, and the other played the waiter. These simple exercises gave me confidence and made speaking fun. The more I participated, the more natural it felt to speak English in front of others. If you can't find a local group, don't worry. There are many online language exchange platforms where you can find partners to practice with from all over the world. You can chat through video calls, voice messages, or even texts. The key is to keep speaking, no matter where you are or who you're with. Another powerful tip is to record yourself speaking. I know it can feel awkward at first, but it's a fantastic way to track your progress. Choose a simple topic, like your daily routine or a recent experience, and talk about it for a few minutes. Then, listen to the recording and notice how you sound. You'll probably discover areas where you can improve, but you'll also hear how much you've already grown. I used to do this every week, and I was amazed at the difference over time. At first, I stumbled through my words and hesitated a lot. But after a few weeks, my sentences became smoother, and I started to sound more confident. This small habit gave me motivation to keep going. Also, don't underestimate the power of reading out loud. It might sound simple, but reading English texts out loud can improve your pronunciation, rhythm, and fluency. Choose articles, short stories, or even scripts from your favorite shows. Read them out loud every day for a few minutes. This helped me a lot when I was trying to reduce my accent and speak more clearly. I would pick a paragraph and read it several times, focusing on pronunciation and intonation. Over time, I noticed a big improvement in how natural I sounded. Let's also talk about using affirmations. Positive self-talk can be a game changer. If you're feeling afraid or discouraged, tell yourself things like, "I'm becoming a confident English speaker," or "Every day, I'm getting better." Say these affirmations out loud, especially before you practice speaking. They help shift your mindset and boost your confidence. Finally, remember this: fluency isn't about speaking perfectly. It's about communicating your ideas clearly and confidently. Even native speakers make mistakes all the time. What matters most is your willingness to try, to keep practicing, and to stay positive. So keep speaking, keep practicing, and keep believing in yourself. Every word you say in English is a step forward. You're doing great, and your journey is just beginning. Shadowing can help you with pronunciation, intonation, and even boost your speaking speed, all of which contribute to feeling more confident. Role-playing with a language partner can also be a fun and effective way to practice speaking. You can create real-life scenarios and act them out either with a friend or even by yourself. For example, you could role-play a job interview, a trip to the supermarket, or a casual conversation at a cafe. This kind of practice will help you feel more comfortable speaking in real situations. Let me tell you about Mark, a man I met during a language exchange program. Mark and I decided to do role-playing exercises to help him get more comfortable speaking in English. One of the scenarios we practiced was ordering food at a restaurant. We took turns pretending to be the waiter and the customer. The first time Mark tried it, he was nervous and made a few mistakes. But with each practice session, he became more fluent and natural in his speech. Eventually, he was able to go to a restaurant and confidently order food in English without hesitation. Surrounding yourself with English materials is another great way to keep your language skills sharp. When you're surrounded by English every day, whether it's through books, podcasts, social media, or even signs in your city, you're constantly reinforcing the language. You don't need to sit down for long hours to study. Instead, you can incorporate English into your day in small ways. Listen to an English podcast while you're walking. Watch short videos in English during your lunch break, or read a few pages of an English book before bed. One example of how I used this method to improve was when I was working on my listening skills. I started listening to podcasts during my commute, even when I didn't have much time. At first, I couldn't understand everything, but I kept listening, and over time, my listening skills improved. Little by little, I found myself catching more words, phrases, and even understanding different accents. Changing your mindset is essential. The way you view mistakes can have a huge impact on how confident you feel when speaking. Instead of thinking of mistakes as something to avoid, try thinking of them as opportunities to learn. Every time you make a mistake, you gain valuable feedback about how to improve. Even native speakers make mistakes in their language. If you start viewing mistakes as a normal part of the learning process, it will become easier to speak confidently because you won't be afraid of being judged. A good example of this comes from a man named Jack. Jack had always been afraid of speaking English in front of others because he thought people would judge him for his mistakes. But over time, Jack realized that making mistakes was a natural part of learning. He started taking every mistake as a chance to grow and improve. This change in his mindset was the key to his success. Now he speaks English confidently, even when he makes an occasional mistake, because he knows it's just part of the process. Finally, Let's talk about taking deep breaths and staying calm. When you're nervous about speaking, your heart races and your mind can feel foggy. In these moments, remember to take a deep breath. Deep breathing helps you relax and regain focus. It's a simple yet powerful technique to calm your nerves and reset your mind. I remember before every important meeting, I would take a few deep breaths to center myself. It helped me feel less anxious and more confident in my ability to speak. This technique also works in everyday conversations. If you're nervous, especially when speaking in front of a group, take a moment to breathe. Even a short pause before you speak can help you feel more confident and in control of the conversation. By now, I hope you're starting to see that overcoming the fear of speaking English is something you can achieve with time, effort, and the right mindset. The journey is unique to each person, and it's okay to go at your own pace. Don't rush it. Embrace the process and enjoy the little victories along the way. Keep practicing, keep pushing yourself, and most importantly, keep speaking. You've got this. Let's continue and dive even deeper into how you can speak English confidently. Remember, every bit of progress you make adds to your overall improvement. So, don't be discouraged if things feel tough at first. Confidence comes with practice, and as you keep trying, it will become more and more natural for you to speak without fear. Let's explore even more methods that will help you break through your fear and feel empowered when speaking English. Start with the basics, the simple words and phrases. It might seem obvious, but the best way to begin overcoming your fear is by getting comfortable with the basics. The more you use simple sentences and phrases, the easier it becomes to move on to more complex topics. For example, you might want to start by practicing small greetings like, "How are you?" or "What's your name?" These are the building blocks of any conversation, and the more you practice them, the easier it will be to expand your vocabulary. Take Sarah as an example. When she first started learning English, she was nervous about speaking at all, but she began with greetings and simple phrases. She would greet her classmates in English and ask basic questions like, "What's your favorite color?" or "How was your day?" At first, she felt awkward, but over time, it became more natural for her to speak. It was the simple words and phrases that gave her the foundation she needed. If you start small and keep building, you'll see that your confidence will grow as well. Another helpful approach is to record yourself speaking. Recording yourself is a powerful technique because it allows you to hear your own progress. When you listen to yourself, you can identify areas where you need improvement, such as pronunciation or fluency. At first, it might feel uncomfortable to hear your own voice, but this is a great opportunity for self-reflection. It's important to understand that everyone feels this way when they start, but over time, you'll get used to it. Most importantly, you'll get better at identifying mistakes and fixing them. A friend of mine, Tom, used this method to improve his speaking. He would record himself reading books, repeating sentences from podcasts, or practicing his own conversations. After recording, he would listen to his voice and compare it to the original speaker. This helped him work on his pronunciation and made him more aware of the areas where he needed improvement. Slowly, Tom began to feel more comfortable speaking in public, and his pronunciation got much clearer. Create a fearless environment around you. One of the biggest challenges many learners face is fear of making mistakes, especially when speaking in front of others. But if you want to speak confidently, you need to surround yourself with supportive people who are not focused on judging every little mistake. Having people who encourage you and make you feel safe is a game changer. For instance, my friend Lucy always wanted to improve her English, but she was afraid of making mistakes in front of her colleagues. She decided to talk to her husband George about it, and he assured her that it was okay to make mistakes. In fact, he encouraged her to speak to him in English every day, and no matter how many mistakes she made, he would help her with corrections in a supportive, non-judgmental way. Over time, Lucy gained confidence and she began speaking to others without fear. It was her safe, encouraging environment that helped her feel confident. Learn simple storytelling. Telling a story in English is a wonderful way to practice speaking, and it can help you build your confidence. You don't need to tell complex stories. Simple anecdotes from your daily life work perfectly. For example, you can tell a story about something that happened to you at work, or describe how you spent your weekend. This is a great way to practice speaking naturally, because storytelling often requires you to think on your feet and speak fluidly. It also allows you to use vocabulary you already know and gradually add more words as you go along. Let me share a quick story from my own life. I remember one time I had to tell a story about how I got lost in a new city. At first, I was nervous because I had to speak in English, but I kept it simple and focused on the key details. I started with, "One day, I was visiting a city for the first time," and continued to describe what happened. The more I practiced telling this story, the easier it became. I didn't worry too much about grammar mistakes. I just focused on getting my message across. And that made all the difference. Over time, as I kept telling different stories, even short ones, my confidence grew. I started using new vocabulary naturally and became more expressive. So don't underestimate the power of storytelling. It can turn a simple conversation into a meaningful interaction and give you the confidence to speak up more often. Next, try using positive self-talk. The way you speak to yourself matters more than you might think. If you're constantly telling yourself, "I'm bad at English," or "I always make mistakes," you're building a mindset of fear. But if you shift your self-talk to things like, "I'm improving every day," or "I'm proud of the progress I've made," your confidence will start to grow. Positive affirmations may sound simple, but they create a powerful shift in your attitude. Write down a few encouraging phrases and read them out loud each morning. Things like, "I am learning and growing every day." "I speak English with courage and confidence." "Mistakes help me improve." Say these to yourself before speaking practice, or even right before a conversation. You'll notice how much lighter and more relaxed you feel. Another strategy is to set small, achievable speaking goals. Don't pressure yourself to become fluent overnight. Instead, focus on specific targets. For example, your goal for today could be to introduce yourself to one person in English. Tomorrow, it could be to ask a question in English at the store or during an online class. These little moments add up. Each goal you reach becomes proof that you can speak English, and your brain begins to accept that truth. Let's also talk about using mirroring. This is when you watch or listen to native speakers and try to imitate the way they speak. Not just the words, but also their tone, rhythm, and body language. It's like shadowing, but more focused on the full communication style. Pick a video of a speaker you admire. Watch a short segment, pause, and repeat exactly what they say, mimicking their voice, energy, and expression. Do this regularly, and you'll start to sound more natural without even realizing it. One last method I'll share is to celebrate your progress often. Learning a language is a big achievement, and it's easy to forget how far you've come. Keep a journal or voice diary where you record what you've learned each week. When you're feeling discouraged, listen to an older recording or read what you wrote months ago. You'll hear the difference. You'll see your own growth. And that is one of the most powerful motivators of all, knowing that your efforts are paying off. To summarize, if you want to overcome your fear of speaking English, remember these key points. Practice with techniques like shadowing, role-playing, and storytelling. Create a supportive environment and surround yourself with English daily. Use positive self-talk, set small goals, and celebrate progress. Accept that mistakes are part of the journey. Take deep breaths when you're nervous and trust in the process. You don't need to be perfect to be confident. You just need to keep moving forward, one word at a time. So take that next step. Say that next sentence. And keep going. You're doing better than you think. You've got this.